Luis Diaz to Bayern. Here we go. It's official. We've made the signing, and let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. I'm using my old work computer, better microphone and camera. I need to figure out the microphone camera stuff on my new laptop. But anyway, let's not talk about that bull crap, and let's talk about this now. Done deal, 75 million total package, including add-ons, 4-year contract for Luis Diaz at Bayern. The wage he will be on about 14 million euros a year gross. And the total transfer fee is 70 million transfer fee with 5 million add-ons for Liverpool. Now, did I make a video? You might ask yourself, didn't Hokage make a video 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, saying that Luis Diaz is a player Bayern should absolutely avoid? And my answer to that question is, yeah, I made that video. I said this is a player Bayern should avoid. Why? What was my main point what were my main points in that video? Well, the number one thing I just was not a big fan of for this Luis Diaz deal is the hot and cold form. Luis Diaz is a purple patch merchant. From everything I've seen since he arrived in England and played his first game for Liverpool, he's been a purple patch merchant. He has one or two hot, firing months, and then he has one or two cold months, and he continuously does that in a constant cycle. And that was my biggest worry. Like, we don't need a purple patch merchant at Bayern. We need someone to play on that left wing consistently. And what do I mean by purple patch merchant? Now, do I need Luis Diaz to come here and score every game, get insane numbers? No. I just want a consistent, dangerous presence on the left side, which is something we haven't had in a while. So that's kind of a counterpoint to why I'm excited about Luis Diaz. Everything I've seen from Luis Diaz is he's a workhorse. He will track back and defend, and that's key for Vincent Kompany and his team. His wingers need to track back and defend and get involved in all aspects of the game. Luis Diaz will not be lazy. Luis Diaz will help out in the defense, and that's huge. That's a characteristic that Vincent Kompany and the Bayern board needed to be fully convinced of with the transfer. And that is why, a guy like Rafael Leao was never really taken seriously at Bayern. And that's because there were questions about his mentality. You could ask any AC Milan fan. He is not the most active defender. He is kind of a lazy player when it comes to tracking back and helping out his midfielders and his fullback in the defensive side of the game. So with Luis Diaz, although I was skeptical and although I was not happy with the fact that we're getting a guy who, when it comes to output, when it comes to goals and assists, mainly goals, he's more of a goal-scoring winger, my main concern was the hot and cold form. Now, I think at Bayern, things can work. Why? The defensive aspect of it, I already talked about right now. But something that needs to be said is he is coming into a much better attack. He is coming into a much better attack, because if you think about Luis Diaz and who he's really played with, sure, that Liverpool attack, Mohamed Salah. Who else? So the reason I'm optimistic, and I will definitely wait to make any judgments on Luis Diaz, I will definitely wait to say he's trash, he's this and that, he's good, is because all of a sudden Luis Diaz will be playing with Harry Kane, Michael Olise on the other side of the field, Alphonso Davies running in behind him, Kimmich and Pavlovic behind him, Musiala to his right. So all of a sudden, you're getting, and this has to be said, Luis Diaz is a baller. He's a baller. He has that Southern American Colombian flair. That I'm excited for. Now, but something you have to take into account is how much can Luis Diaz be elevated by the elevated talent around him. Harry Kane versus Darwin Nunez? Oh my gosh. It's a night and day difference. Musiala versus, McAllister, or mainly Szoboszlai was for a lot of the time at the 10. Musiala versus Szoboszlai? Night and day. You're playing with a baller in Musiala now. Alphonso Davies. Now, I'm not going to disrespect Robertson or anything, but Robertson was not at his peak with the Robertson when Luis Diaz came to Liverpool. Robertson was not in his peak or anything. Now he's coming into Alphonso Davies. You know what I mean? So That's something I'm positive about. I wouldn't say skeptical about. I really think his game can be elevated here. Now, will he be the automatic starting left winger 100%? He has to perform because it looks like Kingsley Coman is going to stay 100%. Now, all of a sudden, Bayern do have pretty decent left wing depth. Luis Diaz, Kingsley Coman. I like that. That's not too shabby if you ask me. And the thing Bayern fans need to realize is we never needed a real superstar on the left wing. We just need someone to come and play on that left side with a brain and just be a constant threat. Give the opposition back line something else to think about, because oftentimes this past season, with Leroy Sané being a brainless idiot 60% of the time out there, Kingsley Coman being injured, Gnabry being useless, a lot of times teams just had to focus on the right side of the field. Teams just had to focus on Musiala and Olise combining on the right side with Harry Kane. A lot of times that's all you really have to worry about. And if you think back to that Inter game, over 2 legs, what did that idiot Leroy Sané give us over 2 legs? He gave us zero threat to that Inter back line. If we had a Luis Diaz, I think things could have been different. So Luis Diaz, his expectations coming to Bayern, this is the truth. He doesn't need to come and get 30 goals and assists in one season. He doesn't need to. What we need him to do is, sure, maybe get 15 to 20 at least, but constantly be available, constantly be a threat on that left side. Now, will he come and play 9 months consistently? 1000% no. 1000% no. But playing in the Bundesliga, playing in a more dominant Bayern team, a better attack, better players around him in the attack, I think that purple patch, that hot and cold form aspect of his career at Liverpool can be tackled, can be changed. And I think he could become a consistent and dangerous player for Bayern. Now, is 75 million an overpay? It's 70 million now, 5 million add-ons. Is 70 million an overpay? Yes, it is. But this is the truth about this signing I want a lot of people to realize is whoever we got for the left wing position this summer, it would have been a massive overpay. Say it was Rafael Leao. Yes, I was convinced of Rafael Leao. He was my top target. It seemed that AC Milan were not going to even consider negotiations unless someone came with at least 100 million bid. And if we went in with 100 million for Leao, that would have been a severe overpay. Say we went for Rodrigo, right? Now we signed Rodrigo, great. In my opinion, there isn't much difference between a Rodrigo and Luis Diaz. The only big, and it's a big difference really, but in terms of consistency throughout a season, there isn't much difference between a Luis Diaz and Rodrigo. What separates the two is big Champions League moments and performances on big Champions League nights. That's the two main differences between a Luis Diaz and Rodrigo. But with a Rodrigo, we would have been overpaying, and we would have had to give Rodrigo a much higher salary. Luis Diaz is going to be on 14 million euros a year. By all means, that is a win for Bayern. That is a win because, remember, one of the big goals of Eberl, the board, is to reduce the wage bill at Bayern. And we're bringing in a starting winger at Bayern from Liverpool, and we only have to pay him. Now, I say only. It's still kind of expensive, but it's not 18, 19, 20 million a year, the wages that Gnabry, Coman, and Leroy Sané were on. So we're getting him on a cheaper wage. A guy like Rodrigo, we probably had to spend at least 90 million to get a Rodrigo, which is a severe overpay, but also a much bigger wage, which would have been counterintuitive to our goals at the club, which were to reduce the wage while still bringing in quality players. So for me, that's another aspect of this deal and something Bayern fans really need to realize. Again, looking at other targets, Nico Williams, say we convinced him. He was asking for Leroy Sané wage 20 million a year. We would have had to overpay for him. Barcola, if we try to convince him from PSG were not going to budge for anything less than 100 million, and we would have had to give him a 20 million a year contract. Any other name you give me, there were flaws to it. The only real left wing, left mid signing with true value on the market for Bayern this summer was Ademola Lookman. And for some reason, the club just did not look into it. I'd love to know the reasons why. I doubt we'll ever know. I doubt we'll ever know if Eberel or Vincent Kompany ever looked into an Adamalo Lokman. But for 40 million, Adamalo Lokman would have been the only guy for good value right now on the market. Anyone else would have been an overpay. For me, second on my one of my other top targets, a Kenan Yildiz, someone on Twitter I was definitely calling for us to sign. Kenan Yildiz would have definitely cost 80 to 100 million, but again, that would be a massive overpay for what Kenan Yildiz is now. But with a Kenan Yildiz, you're paying 80 to 100 million, and you're for sure getting one of the top left wingers for the next 10 years because that kid is special, and he has Bayern in his blood. He is a Bayern Academy graduate, for fuck's sake. So, Luis Diaz to Bayern, was he my top target? I made a video saying we should avoid this signing? Yes. But when I thought about it more, when I looked at the options, when I looked at the cost of all the other options out there, this is a pretty good deal in the end. Yes, it's an overpay for Luis Diaz. Yes, but who are you not overpaying for in this market? Anybody you sign, you're typically overpaying for them these days. Even a Liverpool, when they signed Wirtz, my main complaint with the Wirtz transfer and why I wasn't too bummed about us not getting Florian Wirtz is because 120, 130 million was still an overpay. And Liverpool spent, what, 150, 140 million dollars on Florian Wirtz? It's a big overpay still. So, anyone you really buy from a top team these days, you're going to overpay for them. So for Luis Diaz, I'm hoping him the best. He's going to bring flair for sure. My biggest things I'm going to be looking for with Luis Diaz is the consistency. Also, the competition with Kingsley Coman on the left side. Because do we need a big game player on the left side? Not really. We've always really had Kingsley Coman who performs in the big games, who can be a constant threat in the big games. But with Luis Diaz, something he can definitely do to establish that left wing spot for himself over Kingsley Coman is to come in and consistently score, consistently get assists, because that's something that Kingsley Coman has never been good at Bayern. His best statistical season at Bayern for how long he's been here is kind of a joke. So I'm expecting Luis Diaz for sure. Minimum 10, 15 goals in the league, some goals in the I'm expecting at least 25, 30 goals and assists this season, at least for Luis Diaz. And that should be his goal. He's in his prime. It's not like this isn't a signing for the future, right? And I think a lot of Bayern fans also need to realize that. They see we're paying 75 million, 4-year contract for a 28, 29-year-old. Yeah, we're buying a guy in his prime, and he's going to play out the rest of his prime here, and we're going to sell him after his contract or near the end of his contract. That's kind of the plan here. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if Luis Diaz only gives us 2 good years and then we sell him after 2 years, because you just don't know. You just don't know. So we're buying him to make us better now. And I think he will. I think he will make us better. By how much? I don't know. But listen, anything is I think he would be an upgrade on Leroy Sané. Now, will I act like Luis Diaz is not at times at Liverpool did not play like a brain dead footballer? Oh, absolutely. Ask any Liverpool fan. There were times where they just don't know what this guy's doing on the field. But it's a fresh face, fresh start for him. He's going to be playing with a lot more quality around him in the attack, and I think that will elevate his game. And overall, I think it's a decent deal for Bayern. Yes, it's an overpay, but the deal overall with the wage is good. And I'm wishing him the best. I'm ready for Luis Diaz. I think he's going to have his medical tomorrow or in 2 days, and we'll see what number he gets, and we ride from there. He'll join preseason, and we have our first preseason game this next Saturday against Lyon. So I'm ready for it. Luis Diaz to Bayern, confirmed. I'm excited. Let's see what he does. Hopefully he brings that Colombian flair. Remember, guys, who was the last Colombian player Bayern brought in? It was Mr. James Rodriguez. And we remember, if you're a real Bayern fan, if you remember what James Rodriguez did at Bayern. So can Luis Diaz do the same? We'll see. Is he ugly? Yes. But who cares about looks? I care about bolas. I care about la sauce. I care about sauce. Luis Diaz has sauce. So Luis Diaz, good luck, mi amigo. Hasta luego. Felicidades por tu whatever. 3 years of Spanish, and for what? 3 years of Spanish class for what? Luis Diaz, Bayern. Let's go. Mia San Mia. I'll see you guys next one. It's been your boy Hokage.